Hello, dear viewers of my channel. We have been waiting for this moment for a long time, and it has finally arrived. The new season of Lloyd has finally begun, and I will now be releasing videos about it on a regular basis. Before I start, I would like to thank the sponsors of my channel, as well as the guys who support my videos in the comments. Thank you. I hope you all enjoy watching. The space around them was lit by an incredibly bright moon, under the light of which a dragon was flying. Xavier didn't understand what was happening or where Lloyd was rushing to. Lloyd said that Xavier would understand everything when the time came, and he also asked his subordinate not to draw his sword under any circumstances. A huge tornado covered everything around them, and the dragon was incredibly close. Lloyd began to fly into the space of the artifact, inside which was a portal to hell. The main character and his subordinate flew into hell. Lloyd's face was completely serious at that moment, and they moved at full speed toward the King of Hell's estate. Some time later, the King of Hell greeted Lloyd, saying that it was the best time for his visit. The main character was beside himself with rage, while the King of Hell looked at him with calm eyes. They continued to stand silently facing each other for some time. The King of Hell asked permission to ask the boy a question first, and Lloyd agreed, saying that he didn't mind at all. The demon didn't understand how Lloyd had the courage to come to him, because the boy should have known that the king wanted the main character dead. It seemed that these words provoked Xavier, but Lloyd said that he was not as brave as the demon thought. The main character said that it would make no sense for the King of Hell to kill him right there and then, because in any case the demon would always be able to trick Lloyd into working for him. The main character was also sure that because of the rules, if he died in hell, the demon would definitely not be able to use his soul. The main character knew very well that if he died in hell, his soul would be destroyed forever. Xavier instantly realized that the King of Hell wanted to use Lloyd's soul, which is why he was planning to kill him. The King of Hell clapped his hands, amazed by Lloyd's abilities, and then, with a crazy look on his face, declared that it was precisely because of these qualities that he wanted the main character so badly. Lloyd joked that they were too far apart in age for that kind of relationship, but the King of Hell said that it was the young man's courage that made him fall in love. The King of Hell asked what Lloyd wanted to know after coming to hell. The main character simply did not understand why the demon was trying so hard to kill him, since Lloyd was just a human who would die sooner or later. The demon began to explain that he himself would have been happy if the rules of the world had not prevented him from doing so. He began to tell how he had hoped that Lloyd would commit evil deeds, but in the end, because of Lloyd, many people had found a better life, and the boy had done too much good. The King of Hell said that as soon as a soul exceeds a certain limit of good, it is sent to heaven without question. Lloyd suggested that this was why the King of Hell was in such a hurry to kill him, before he had time to accumulate enough good deeds. The King of Hell nodded silently in agreement with Lloyd's words. The main character said that he knew very well that the King of Hell could not enter the human world without special permission, and he did not understand how the demon planned to pull it off. The demon began to ask for forgiveness because in the end, he was not such an important creature in the structure of the world. Lloyd said that the demon should not apologize, because as soon as he found out the necessary information, everything would be over. The King of Hell sighed, amazed at Lloyd's desire to live, because he already had so many problems due to the phenomenon of fate restoration, and now even he, the King of Hell himself, wanted to kill him. The demon declared that Lloyd's long-held dream of a peaceful old age was now literally non-existent, and the King of Hell simply did not understand why Lloyd would fight for such a terrible life. The main character silently looked at the demon, then declared that fighting to the last breath was his purpose in life. The King of Hell looked interested and promised to root for Lloyd. At that time, the Queen of Demons was flying in the air above the main character's lands. She used her eyes and began to see the future of the people Lloyd wanted to protect. She immediately shifted her gaze to other territories. Then the girl focused on something else, which turned out to be the Queen's castle, on the roof of which a strange bloody stain began to appear, continued to move across the roof, then began to disappear. It turned out to be a madman standing over the sleeping queen. The madman laughed loudly, preparing to finish off the girl with a single blow. Suddenly, the madman's gaze changed completely, and the queen immediately jumped out of her bed and was ready to attack the enemy. She admitted that if she had neglected her training, she would have certainly died. The girl immediately struck an incredibly fast and precise blow with her sword, and the enemy immediately began to scream in pain. Suddenly, his body turned into a clot of blood, and the girl immediately assumed that it was just a trick of the enemy. A moment later, the entire room was filled with an incredibly thick green fog. The girl immediately realized that it was an incredibly powerful poison that would be difficult for her to overcome. A moment later, her expression changed. The queen felt as if she were in a completely different space. She looked closely at the floor and saw a little girl who was confident that she could overcome this terrible curse. The queen thought that something like this would soon drive her mad. She immediately began to look incredibly kind and asked the girl not to worry. With footsteps outside, she said that they had the right person. Lloyd entered the space where the two personalities of the queen were, and in reality, the main character and Xavier managed to save the girl. It was late at night outside, and inside the castle, the main character held the queen's hand tightly. The girl seemed to be in incredible pain inside her mind. Lloyd was worried. He was glad he had made it, but he wasn't sure how to cure the curse. Holding the girl's hand, Lloyd thought that he simply needed her to build a stable country that would allow the hero to live a peaceful life. Lloyd looked sadly at the girl, whose face was covered in sweat from the stress she was experiencing inside her mind. The main character asked if it was possible to track down their enemy, but the queen said that it was impossible for her. Unexpectedly, she said that she knew what kind of magic it was, which immediately interested Lloyd. The girl confessed that it was black magic left behind by the god of evil, the hammer of witches. She explained that this technique was filling the queen's heart with evil and trying to drive her mad. Lloyd was shocked to hear that the demon queen knew the cure for this curse. The girl explained that they needed to remove the negative mana from the queen's body. The main character suggested that he and Xavier could infuse their mana and free the queen, but the girl immediately stated that Xavier's mana would not work. She explained that the negative mana had literally merged with the queen's heart, and as soon as anyone tried to infuse their mana into the queen, she would immediately reject it. The demon said that only the mana of a person whom the queen trusted unquestioningly could help. She immediately stated that such a person could only be her beloved. Lloyd just stared silently at the demon, not saying a word. He began to feel nervous because, in order to succeed, he would have to ask the queen out on a date and make her fall in love with him, which was an incredibly difficult task. Xavier and the demon queen didn't even know how to react. The girl tried to say something, but Xavier interrupted her, saying that the situation was indeed complicated. Xavier began to say that the queen trusted Lloyd and that everything would work out, while the demon queen didn't understand why they couldn't just say that the queen loved Lloyd. In the end, the main character decided to try, while the demon couldn't believe that he was so stupid. Xavier explained that when it came to love, Lloyd was as dumb as a rock. The main character ordered his people to follow the phenomenon of fate so that no one would get hurt. The main character was going to save the queen and later catch the bastard who did this. Lloyd grabbed the girl by her arm and immediately began to pour his mana into her. He saw a huge number of negative mana particles and was amazed at their quantity. Lloyd immediately headed for the first particle and flew into it with his mana. As a result, both particles simply destroyed each other. The main character believed that the entire process could take an eternity. The queen began to scream in pain, and it seemed that the curse was continuing to progress incredibly quickly, but suddenly she felt much better and calmed down. The main character understood perfectly well that the queen was also fighting desperately and that they had to gradually destroy the curse. Lloyd was going to give it his all and overcome this crisis, after which a huge amount of the main character's mana began to move in the girl's body. In the queen's subconscious, she was running in the body of a little girl, running away with all her might, breathing heavily. It turned out that something very scary was following the little girl. She couldn't break away from it at all, when suddenly these tentacles grabbed her, and she started screaming and begging for help with all her might. Suddenly, Lloyd shouted back that she should not be afraid and just hold on a little longer. The girl heard these words, and it seemed as if her spirit was revived. The queen immediately swung her sword and cut the tentacles that were holding her, continuing to chop at these disgusting tentacles. The queen was going to fight with all her might as a huge number of tentacles continued to move toward her. A moment later, they reached the girl, who was completely surrounded by tentacles. She began to scream with all her might and, with an incredibly fast series of blows, cut the tentacles. However, they immediately struck the girl's fragile body and continued to cover her body more and more tightly, showing no signs of stopping. Eventually, only her arms remained outside, and it seemed that the girl was completely trapped, where they began to squeeze her, seemingly with the desire to crush her completely. The main character immediately grabbed the tentacles that were trying to kill the queen. Lloyd began to shout, starting with 1, and the queen immediately continued with 2, and on 3, they joined forces to break the chains that were around the girl. The main character smiled broadly, looking at the queen, who was also incredibly happy to see him. The main character and the queen hugged each other with all their might, and the girl opened her eyes while Lloyd lay unconscious near her bed. The queen immediately looked at Lloyd, who looked incredibly tired and was unconscious. At that moment, Lloyd's dragon was in the air, and Xavier could clearly feel the queen's mana awakening. A smile appeared on Xavier's face as he thought about the couple, while in reality, the queen was hugging the exhausted Lloyd. Dear friends, I am very happy that new chapters are starting to come out, so I have decided to retell one chapter every week, so be sure to follow the channel, because as soon as a new chapter comes out, I will film it. In the meantime, I would like to ask you to support my other videos, as I put a lot of effort into creating them and would really appreciate your support. Thank you all and see you next time.